Pure rock. Pure rock live in the net. That is Die to Live. Yet another track from Where the Wild Things Are, from Mr. Steve Vai. Before that, you heard Building the Church with an awesome tremolo tapping at the very tail end of that. And I'll give Steve some praises on the CD. But, you know, Pure Rockers, I was fortunate enough to catch the entire DVD this last week, which we'll talk about more in just a second. Also, prior to that, you heard All About Eve, one of the fewer tracks with vocals on Where the Wild Things Are. Well, without further ado, this Pure Rockers is what I call a post-fight recap. Steve spoke with our own Junkman on the eve of the Egyptian Theater premiere a few weeks ago here in Hollywood, California, for Where the Wild Things Are, and which will now be out in a mere 2 days, also on CD. Joining me on the phone, I first heard of Steve on guitar very indirectly as a kid living in the San Fernando Valley, as he played with the enigmatic Mr. Frank Zappa on a record called, well, you know that song, If You Lived in the San Fernando Valley. Later on, Steve has had a long career, putting out many great releases over the years. So joining me on the phone, Pure Rockers, Mr. Steve Vai. How you doing, Steve?
Doing pretty good. How you doing, Big Will?
Hey, man. Again, I appreciate you calling in, and hey.
I appreciate you playing the tracks.
Sounding good. I think you're always quite the showman, and a lot of comic relief contained within Where the Wild Things Are. So
yeah, I like to keep it light.
Keep it light. Again, so Pure Rockers, if you have a question for Steve, please hit me up in the KNAC.com chat room. And since I've had an opportunity to see the DVD, it's really great production. You have a lot of sweetening here and there, Steve, and obviously with your playing, a lot of your team, they get a lot of spotlight of their own. I was enamored with the violin players, you know, Alex and Anne Marie, as well as Jeremy with his stuff. Everything was just a whole production. Just amazing. Amazing.
You know, when you got guys in the band, people in the band that are this good, you know, you really want to kind of show them off, I guess. But they're so talented and musical, but they don't really beat you up with their musicianship. You know, it's very accessible. And I always felt that by highlighting the whole band, it raises the bar on the whole, you know, entertainment experience. And it works because they're really great. You mentioned the violin solo. I mean, wow. That whole section there where the two of them are going at it is really special.
I particularly like, Steve, at the tail end of that, after that build-up crescendo, you had like the simulated, well, not to give too much away for you Pure Rockers who haven't seen the DVD, but they have the simulated sneeze. That's actually my interpretation of it, because it was a big build-up as they just punched it, and it was just like at the very tail end, it's like, oh, that was clever. So
yes, the little da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yes.
After they just played like the most impossible stuff.
Pure Rockers, the one and only Mr. Steve Vai joining me on the phone. Steve, I also noticed that you start out with that kryptonite glow-in-the-dark green guitar before you break out Evo and Flow.
Well, that's to keep away all the other Supermen.
Yes.
So that's actually the 20th anniversary Gem guitar. I had designed a guitar for Ibanez over 20 years ago, and on its 20th anniversary, we come out with special models now and then. But that one was really special. It's actually clear, and it's got these like colors on the inside of it, and I had them put a green light underneath the pickup, so you light that light up and the whole guitar just explodes with color.
Also on the fretboard, that's illuminated as well, correct?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if that one's illuminated.
Okay, I thought the
yeah, no, I don't think so. But
okay.
The lights from the body will pretty much, knock your eyes out.
Nice. Now, in 2 days, Where the Wild Things Are comes out on CD and DVD, as well as Blu-ray. Now, Blu-ray will be at a later date?
Yeah, we're coming out with the Blu-ray probably a little less than a month later. And I have to say that Blu-ray is such a great technology. It's so much clearer and cleaner than the DVD, and it's very expensive right now to actually author a DVD in the Blu-ray format.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really not a lot of concert performances on Blu-ray, and because most DVDs are released through labels, record labels and whatnot, and labels have to kind of like add the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and if you crunch the numbers and include a Blu-ray, it's very difficult to make it work. But since I own the label,
Well, of course.
I decided, you know what, I've just got to put my best foot forward here, and it really there really is a difference. And if you kind of like real clear, great sounding visuals, you've got an HD TV and you're renting Blu-ray discs, and now this will be available for those who are interested in it. It's
Nice.
great.
Steve, how long was the editing and mixing process for Where the Wild Things Are? I mean, from the tour that this was filmed at in Minneapolis to the final production.
It was a long time. It was probably a year and a half.
Year and a half?
Year and a half, because I was doing things in there, a year and a half to 2 years. I mean, I did some tours with Dweezil.
Oh, yeah, Zappa plays Zappa, correct?
Yeah, the Zappa plays Zappa stuff. I did some interspersed stuff, but it was a big process because we had filmed and recorded the sound check also. I like to do that in the event that something goes wrong during the show, or there's something drops out on the recording, or some kind of disaster happens. So cutting in between those two shows is very time consuming.
You're right.
I probably took about 20% from sound check, just like some notes and some riffs and stuff. But once it's all cut together, then it has to be edited on the, all the film has to be edited, and then it has to be mixed properly. And every process that I went through, I really focused on the highest quality that we could get. And I do everything myself, so it's kind of like a long process.
Well, being a one-man gang, it's like you're overseeing, from start to finish. So you have to be happy with the end result, no matter what. So
yeah,
there you have it. Now, as I mentioned, when you spoke with Junkman a few weeks ago, you had the premiere for Where the Wild Things Are at the Egyptian Theater. Please share with me your thoughts about not only the turnout, but how it was well received once everyone had an opportunity to see it.
Well, it's funny because a lot of times I do interviews and people say, if you could look back over your whole career, what was the most exciting moment, or the most rewarding moment? And I believe that when I was sitting in that theater watching the film was a highlight my entire career, because every time you do something, it's kind of a statement of everything you've done in the past, and it's right there. And we worked so hard on this DVD, every aspect of it, from the 30 days of rehearsal at 15 hours a day,
Woo.
To the touring, to the incredible amount of energy that was spent on the color correction and the audio. So when it came time to to kind of like release it, I've been a member on the board of directors of this wonderful organization in Hollywood called Hollywood Arts. I was really grabbed by them, by what they were doing a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. It's a small organization in Hollywood, and we have this facility, and they take homeless and at-risk teens off the streets and put creative tools in their hand. So you've got all these, great computer outlets with, various kinds of programs, art programs, and you've got like fashion design teachers that come in and teach people on those kinds of things. And then we built a little studio.
Nice.
And there's gear, and you can record, and there's instruments, and there's teachers that go up there. So you get these kids in there whose life are just, one intense challenge after another. And you see their whole, their whole makeup shift, because now they're applying the creative element. And that really, when you create something, it really gives you the sense of achievement. So it was a great opportunity to premiere the film and help raise money. So we chose the Egyptian because it's this gorgeous theater right there on Hollywood Boulevard. And we put everything together. And once I put the word out, we got auction items from so many people. Some people can be so generous. I mean, there's stuff that came in from just a ton of people. You can visit the website and see. And the auction and that the whole night, there was a silent auction and an eBay auction, and it just was phenomenal. It was a really great event, and a lot more people showed up than I thought.
Never underestimate the power of the music, but never underestimate the power.
Well, you sit there and you think, who's going to, I mean, I'm an acquired taste, sort of, and it's not like, it's a Bruce Springsteen film or the new Michael Jackson film, and I'm thinking, who's going to show up, and I was just so thrilled, it was just such a great event, and getting to see it on the big screen using the Blu-ray, and with the 5.1 sound in that theater, and when I was sitting in that theater watching, and I realized how much money we raised, and also that moment of being there and watching something that's finished. That was a highlight. It was a tremendously successful evening.
Excellent. Currently, right now, there's a few things left on the eBay auction. Will Steve, this be a continuing, ongoing process?
Well, Hollywood Arts is always, like a lot of, young nonprofits, we're always in need of funds. So there's always some kind of, fundraiser that's going on. But when I did this fundraiser, there was so many people that wanted to contribute. Sometimes some things came late after the auction even, so we didn't want to lose the opportunity to, use those things to help raise money. So there'll probably be a little continuation.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. Again, a charity auction, all proceeds to benefit the Hollywood Media and Arts. Again, a couple things right now, but that will, sure that'll change down the line. Pure Rockers, I'm speaking with Steve Vai. Again, you can pre-order your copy of Steve Vai's new DVD and CD live in Minneapolis, Where the Wild Things Are. Tell you what, Steve, let's play another track from the CD. Another favorite of mine. This is a Firewall. Now, this is one of the few that you have vocals on. So there you go. We'll come back and talk with Steve. Again, if you have a question for Steve, hit me up in the KNAC.com chat room. Again, this is Firewall. Here on the loudest.com on the planet's KNAC.com. Pure Rock live in the nets of Firewall. Mr. Steve Vai from Where the Wild Things Are. Good stuff. And I am back with Mr. Steve Vai. Obviously, solid stuff there, Steve. I would imagine, though, that once you have all your players in place, once you have the tour, you have the set list, you have quite the repertoire to choose from. How do you do it with so many great songs from?
Well, it's not very much different than what anybody else does. It's just geared towards what I enjoy, and it's really great because I get to put these bands together. I get to imagine any band I want, basically, and then put it together, and then go out there and play. And you're right. There is a lot of preparation. But once you're all prepared, it's a piece of cake. It's a cakewalk. I've been doing it for 30 years. I feel completely at home, completely confident, totally in charge, and just ready to go out there and just have a blast. And that's what we do.
And how great is it having the freedom with Favored Nations versus, let's say, your long tenured stint with Sony and Epic? I mean, this is 10 years and counting.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the very beginning, I was an independent artist. I had my own little label, and it was just because I didn't want to bother with the system, and I didn't really think it was fair, and it was tremendously successful, I mean, on a totally independent level. But I couldn't really, once all my serious solo records started kicking in, I couldn't really do it myself, and
right.
I signed to a little label called Relativity, which were fantastic. They released Passion and Warfare and a couple of my records, and then they were purchased by Sony. And the thing is, a lot of people think, oh, the big bad record company. Well, if you have somebody, if you're on a major label and you have somebody at that label that believes in you and understands you, you're doing great. You can do great, and because they, a major label has muscle. They really can get your record out there. And because it was me, I'm the kind of artist. I did have somebody at Sony, a couple of people, that.
Someone in your corner.
Yeah, so it was relatively easy. There was things that were really easy. Sony knew that this is Steve Vai. We're not going to be able to tell him what to record, and I'm not that kind of artist. They're not. They're not dummies. They know that if they got someone like me, they're going to say, whatever you got, just give us. And because of that, there's an audience that will purchase it, and they don't need to do, videos and take ads out in Rolling Stone and try to get something on VH1 or, get the music on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So there was never, it was very easy. I was a very easy artist for the majors. But once I started my solo, my independent label years ago, because I knew one day when, I had more time, besides the fact that I get to work with such incredibly creative artists that I love to help make their music available, I knew that it would be a good vehicle for me to release my music eventually. So this DVD is my first release outside of being a Sony artist on my own label. And the thing that is so much better for me is that I have complete control. First of all, I make 4 times the amount of money for every CD or DVD sold. That's just the way that works.
You can't
Did I say 4? I mean 6.
Right.
6 times the amount. Yeah, that's about right.
There we go. The Steve Vai math.
That's right. But it's true. And then there's the ability to do so many more creative things, like the premiere. There was no way that premiere would have come off if I was a Sony artist. They would laugh at the idea of me doing a premiere,
Mm-hmm.
And we're servicing certain stations and certain outlets that might not have been served before. But the bottom line is it's riskier because you got to use all your own funds. But then again, I have so much more freedom, and I make so much more. So that the freedom is in the fact that I can do whatever kinds of things I want. If I want to do a Blu-ray, there's a Blu-ray.
Right.
So
I mean,
that's the freedom, yeah.
And that freedom has to be liberating because since you've been at it for so many years, this is now your baby, your project, and you may not have the restrictions and issues so much with the majors. This is favored nations. This is your stuff. So it must be liberating.
It really is. It's liberating because there's nothing like being an independent artist and actually, being able to be successful with it because you're in control of all your own stuff. And, for some artists that they're not interested in that. It's a big workload.
Yeah.
You got to be, you got to have a certain kind of brain muscle for it. But for others, there's no other way. And for me, it's perfect. It's really great.
Outstanding. Pure Records, I'm speaking with Mr. Steve Vai. Steve, I have a question for you from the KNAC.com chat room. Someone asks, when will the anniversary reissue of Flexible be re-released?
Oh, thanks for asking. I'm working on it at this moment. I'm looking at the tape right now. It's up on the machine. And the amazing thing is that little record, when it came out, there were no CDs. And so when CDs became available, the record was transferred using relatively inferior equipment, which was state-of-the-art at the time,
Mm-hmm.
So now I went back and I broke out the analog tapes. I put them up on the machine, and the whole process now is analog. And I've got this incredible gear, so I'm remastering it, and it's just like a whole different little record. So it probably will come out maybe, I don't know about this year, but probably early next year.
Yeah, maybe the first quarter or something like that.
Yeah, probably the first quarter.
Yeah, I would imagine. Boy, I tell you, with Flexible, that was one of those releases of yours that went through so many changes. With, there were the leftovers, there were the packaging, and when it came out, it was like, this is not your typical rock record. And then with Relativity and then Important and all the stuff that they did back then, it was.
Well, first I have to say, I'm impressed that you're so on top of an artist's catalog. Thank you.
Well,
even knew all the permeations of Flexible. I'm impressed.
Oh, well. Well, you know what? I got a hold of it. I got a hold of it early because, as I said at the very top of the show, I came wind of you, obviously, through Frank Zappa. And when I first saw Zappa on Saturday Night Live before you had joined the band, he was a very interesting individual, especially on the Slime in Your Radio. And that was my first introduction to him because I know my mom had all the Mothers of Invention albums and whatnot. So eventually, one day, I did go through her record collection and found all this crazy stuff.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But what I wanted to play at the very, very beginning was the B-side of Valley Girl, because that's the song Valley Girl. Obviously, Pure Rockers.
I Come From Nowhere?
Well, actually, I think it was Teenage Prostitute.
Oh, was it Teenage Prostitute?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's a cool track, huh?
And that was the one because Steve is all over this album, but when that came out in 1982, everyone knew Valley Girl. But the little-known guitar player, along with Mr. Frank Zappa, was Steve Vai, and he played for many, many years with him. And then I later found out about you, Steve, obviously through the movie Crossroads, which I actually have a question for you a little later in a bit. Sure. But just over the years, you've done so many different things with so many different projects, but it's always been about your innovations with the guitar, whether it's 6-string, 7-string. You've always added an added dimension to your performance. The G3 shows several years back, and it's just been a nice culmination with your career. And with this new packaging, for some, Steve, it's going to be the first time that they see what you're all about. You know how audiences are very cyclical.
Yeah.
Parents bringing their kids for the first time. So.
Yeah.
I'm
seeing a lot more of that at the shows.
Yes. And again, Pure Rockers, Where the Wild Things Are, coming out in a mere 2 days. And you can see a preview of the DVD, a 3-minute DVD preview on Steve Vai's website. Go to vai.com.
Yeah, actually, there's, I think, a 3-minute, a 7-minute, and a 15-minute.
Oh.
What we're finding out is the stores are selling out pretty quick.
That's good.
It's really great. So I would suggest if somebody was interested in getting it in the store, you may want to order it.
Nice. Always good to have advance orders locked and loaded.
Yeah, it's really
locked and loaded. Now, once the DVD and CD come out properly, you have some in-stores in Strong Island. Is that correct?
Strong Island, yep. I'm doing Looney Tunes on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to my stomping grounds.
There you go. Steve, of course, is an East Coast boy, but he's, I'd say, a refabricated Californian, so...
Well, I've been here for almost 31 years.
Yeah.
30 years now. 30 years, wow.
Yeah, you were out in the valley.
Well, I was in Hollywood, and then I was in Sylmar, and then I was back in Hollywood, and now I'm in the valley, yeah. It's I guess, my kids are all, born here, and we're pretty much rooted here.
Are they well adjusted by now, would you say, Steve?
Yeah.
Good.
They're great. They're, off to college, really, so.
Now, by this point, I would hope so. Steve Vai, Pure Rockers, joining me on the phone. Steve, question for you. This also comes from the KNAC.com chat room as well as me, so it's sort of a combination question. What's your process for coming up with song titles? Would you say the feel, the emotion, or is everything sort of worked out well in advance? The actual song titles?
Well, it happens in various ways. Mm-hmm. I don't put up any kind of particular parameters that say, okay, I'm going to write a song this way or that way, because inspiration can come to you in many different ways, and sometimes it starts with the song title.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got this one song that was called "Kill the Guy with the Ball." That was a game I used to play with my friends when we were kids. I had the title.
Uh-huh.
I thought, what would this sound like? And on the DVD, there's a song called Freak Show Excess.
Yes, that is a serious workout, that song.
Yeah, and that came about. That was the headline for a review of one of my shows from some magazine someplace, from some paper. Mm-hmm. And I read it, and I thought, oh, my gosh, what a great name for a track.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself set up certain musical parameters in my head. Freak Show Excess. Okay, so it's got to be completely over the top. It's got to be stuff that's freakish, and so that's kind of like where that came up. But then again, a lot of times you write something comes out of your head, and or a melody, or you're playing it, and you listen to it, and for me, there's that moment where you're making the connection between listening to the music that you wrote and coming up with a title. Because you want the title to kind of, your mind work with the music, or
mm-hmm.
That's what I strive to do. So that's another way that I come up with titles. I mean, if you name any song, I can tell you how I came up with the title.
You've got quite a few. Pure Rockers, on the DVD, you have the full concert, the 2-hour plus concert, a total of 27 tracks, and on the CD, you get 15 tracks. So you get a collection of songs from the full concert on the CD.
Yeah.
And there you go. And also, there's some bonus material, the band interviews. And you have a really, really solid band, as I mentioned earlier on. Brian, Jeremy, Dave, Alex, Anne Marie, and Zach. Just collectively, they all get their spotlight on where the wild things are, and they do a really, really fantastic job complementing what you do. And obviously, they're great players in their own right.
I lucked out.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Pure Rockers, Steve Vai, stevevai.com for more information. And don't forget, this comes out a mere 2 days from now. Another question for you, Steve. This pertains to a very oddly timed release. This is a movie of the same name. Now, I figure, what's the story with the film?
Goodness gracious. Well,
I doubt the diehard fans will be confused, but I would imagine you getting a jump start on the title, Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah, I know. Well, the title, Where the Wild Things Are, originated with a very popular children's book.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was, and I knew it since I was a child, but I always thought it was a great name for a project or a song or something. And I always kind of put it on the back burner because I thought, well, it might be, people would say, well, you stole the name. And, yeah, I did. I stole it from the children's book because it's such a cool title.
Right.
And, when I decided this, I had another name for this DVD, but Where the Wild Things Are just kept coming into my head. So I said, you know what, let me name this project that. So, we called the book publisher and we took care of all the legal stuff, and basically, it's not copywritten. Anybody can use it, but you can't do anything that associates any of the artwork or anything for my DVD with the book. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there was no problem, and I thought, okay, let's go with it. And then after I had signed off on it, and everything started going into the press, and it was pretty much a done deal. Then I find out that Warner Brothers is releasing this film based on the children's book, like a week after the DVD comes out. And I thought, now that's ironic.
I think it's like what are the chances? Like the planets were aligned. Unbelievable, but
it's okay. No, it's not going to matter. In the scheme of things, it's not going to matter one bit.
Yeah, well, maybe some cross-pollination.
Yeah, maybe I'll sell a few more.
Hey,
we'll be really surprised.
Maybe. Pure Rockers, Mr. Steve Vai, Where the Wild Things Are. Before we set up this final track from this latest release, Steve, I really want to thank you so much for taking the time to call in on this post-fight recap. Again,
well, I appreciate the support you guys are giving me. It's really, really wonderful because, it's difficult to get music performed on the radio, and it's rare for me, so it's very, very nice. Thanks.
Yeah, it is what it is. The business model has changed so much, and I think with the digital distribution, that's always a positive thing to look forward to. But the physical things, people like tangible things like CDs and DVDs, and Pure Rockers. I have 5 DVDs of Where the Wild Things Are. I was going to hit you all with some trivia, but just to keep it simple, the first 5 Pure Rockers to email me at thevault@KNAC.com. You'll get a copy of the brand new CD for Mr. Steve Vai, Where the Wild Things Are. Again, out September 29th.